if you could mute your phone until it's your turn to present, then we'll be good. But I want to welcome everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in and joining us this afternoon. My name is Joanna Nelson, and I'm with the New Mexico Economic Development Department, and I'm on the finance team, and also manage the program called FUNDIT. And the webinar that we are hosting today is a part of an ongoing educational series that we do every other month, where we talk about different funding opportunities that exist for communities that have economic development projects or community development projects. So today, we're really excited to be joined by representatives from the Department of Environment, and they're going to be talking about their great programs and filling you in, and hopefully this will be a precursor for you to follow up with them and connect with them and learn more about their programs. But I'll just really quickly go through the list of the representatives. So we have Rebecca Cook, and we have Gail Craven and Judy Kale, and we have Abraham Franklin and Karin Torres, and then myself, who is going to talk. I'm going to talk about the solid waste program a little bit. But before we get started, I was going to briefly go over what FUNDIT is for those of you that are not familiar with the group. FUNDIT is an informal group that we meet bi-monthly, and the group is made up of state and federal entities that represent funding programs. So we get applications every month from communities that have economic development and community development projects that are looking for some type of financing. They're looking for grants, they're looking for financing, they're looking for help to fund their projects. So the communities present at these meetings, and at that meeting, they have the opportunity to get feedback and hear brainstorming and hear insight from the actual funders. So it's a really great opportunity to get guidance and receive help navigating the different funding sources that are out there. Not only do we have the funding entities, the state and the federal entities, but we also have representatives from the Council of Governments, and we also have the New Mexico regional reps that are there as well. So at those meetings, you have an enormous amount of wealth of knowledge that they're able to share with the communities. Oftentimes, it might not even be one of their respective programs that they're offering, but they're saying, hey, this is like a similar project that we saw in our region, so you should try this foundation, or you should try this grant, or they're able to offer tips because they've been there and done that. So it's a great opportunity. If you have projects in your region that you need help finding financing, it's a great opportunity. You can go online to gonm.biz, that's the New Mexico Economic Development Department's website. Go to the FUNDIT page, and there's an online application. It's really simple, 2 pages, and fill out an application, and that's it. Here are a couple of links that you can access later. We do have a funding map that if you go to that top link, you actually can see on a map a lot of different funding sources that are available that are broken down and categorized by project type. So if you have a transportation project, if you have a water project, if you have a community development project, you can go under those categories and see all the different funding sources and have links to those programs. And then here's the link for the FUNDIT application. And then the third link that you'll see, this Reister project, you can go to that project or go to that link and you will see a pipeline of all of the current FUNDIT projects. and you might see a project in your area that you could find synergy with, or call them because you have a similar project and get feedback on where they got their funding from. So FUNDIT is a great resource, and once again want to thank you for joining us today, and thanks to our panelists for sharing their time and their information. We are recording this session, so we'll put it up on our YouTube page, and then all of the registrants will get a copy of the PowerPoint as well after the presentation. And then after each presenter presents their information, we'll take brief questions, and we'll take questions at the end as well. And if you do have a question, just simply type it in the question box that you can see in the GoToWebinar panel. You can see a gray box that says questions. Just type your questions in and we'll get those answered. So thanks again, and without further ado, I'm going to introduce Rebecca Cook, who's going to talk about brownfields. So Rebecca?
Thank you, Joanna. Hello, everybody. I'm Rebecca Cook. I'm with the Voluntary Remediation and Brownfields Program. We are housed under the umbrella of the Groundwater Quality Bureau. So my disclaimer today is that I'm pretty new to the Revolving Loan Fund. I issued my first loan last week, but I'm really interested in hearing what other people are offering as well. So let's see if we can muddle through this presentation that, Okay, I can't make the slides move.
Okay, you want to try again?
Okay.
I could see your mouse moving, so I think you can just click, if you try clicking on it. Yep, there you go.
Oh, there we go. Okay, wait, let's back up.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let me see if we're on track here. Okay, so we address brownfields and remediation of those sites. The key point, I guess, to start with is what is a brownfield? It is an EPA definition, real property, the expansion, redevelopment, or reuse of which may be complicated by the presence or potential presence of a hazardous substance, pollutant, or contaminant. And I think the thing to hit really hard here is potential presence. A lot of people envision like a mini Superfund site, and that's not necessarily the case. We're talking about old gas stations, vacant motels, former industrial sites. It doesn't have to be a really disastrous piece of property to be classified as a brownfield. It doesn't have to be vacant, and like I said, it doesn't have to have a hazardous substance present, but the potential of that being there makes it a brownfield. Every municipality, every community has brownfields. It's really useful to identify, perhaps create an inventory of what those sites are, investigate with phase 1 and phase 2 environmental site assessments. We're going to come back to the phase 1 because that's really critical to accessing our funding. We get the site cleaned up and ready for redevelopment. And part of accessing the brownfield cleanup money is that there needs to be community involvement. We find that makes a big difference to the success of a project. So it's something we encourage and require, actually. Purpose of the phase 1. Really, phase 1 is liability protection for the property owner. It's critical for accessing brownfields funding, and it satisfies EPA's all appropriate inquiries requirement. So we're trying to help buyers of real estate understand the environmental issues on the property and help lenders determine if they're making a high-risk loan. We get so many people who come to us and they don't know what they bought. They didn't realize what was coming with that piece of property. So current phase 1, and current means less than 180 days old, is required to be eligible for the brownfields funding. So our cleanup loan is probably the easiest approach if you've got a property that needs attention. There is the EPA cleanup grant. That's a national competition, 20% funding match. It's very competitive. I've got a website up here to access other federal grants. But our loan fund has been sorely underutilized until lately. I think we're finally getting the word out. Part of what we require when a person comes to us for a loan is that they participate in the voluntary remediation program. And that helps a lot with the community outreach, as well as allowing us to have some oversight of the quality of the remediation. Hang on a second. Sorry about that. My goodness, I'm choking. Okay. Apologies. We have a lot of flexibility on our loans. Okay, I'm going to try again. A lot of flexibility, favorable terms. Maximum interest rate is 3%. We like to see repayment within 10 years, but it really depends on the individual situations. We are able to do subgrants to government entities. Another requirement is that the recipient must own the property, and responsible parties for the contamination are not eligible for a loan. Again, get the phase 1 before you take title of the property and contact us for an eligibility determination. We're really happy to take a look at stuff before it's purchased. Oh, I apologize, everybody. Because our loan fund is federal money, we do require DAFIS-Bacon wages apply for all the remediation activity. We follow the federal procurement guidelines, and there are multiple documents that are required. The community relations plan and the analysis of brownfields alternatives. These aren't overly burdensome documents, and we can assist with that. And then, of course, the remediation plan. And then through the VRP, like I said, we can have oversight of the work so that it meets regulatory and regulatory standards. Really broad eligible uses for our cleanup funds: remediation and mitigation of the contaminated soil, soil vapor, groundwater, oversight activities, any site control precautions, drainage controls, the list goes on, capping of contaminated soils. We are also able to loan money for abatement of asbestos, lead-based paint. Petroleum products gets a little more complicated, but there is money available for that. Also, long-term site monitoring if that's needed, as well as sampling and costs associated with the ABCA, the alternative abatement document. So coming back for a minute to the voluntary remediation program, if someone comes in for a loan, we have them enroll the property in our voluntary remediation program. That allows us to give some oversight of the remediation activities. The voluntary remediation program was set up to facilitate property transactions in the case where there's environmental concerns, and it helps with, there's a lender liability component to it as well. So current property owners or operators are eligible to apply, as are prospective property owners or operators. At the end of the program, the participant will receive a certificate of completion from NMED, and anyone who purchases the property in the future can request a covenant not to sue from us for the contaminants and media that were addressed. We do have a $1,000 application fee, and we charge oversight fees for the staff time. We try to be very fair with that, so it's not going to be a huge monetary burden in terms of a remediation project. And as I mentioned, we offer a certificate of completion at the end of that. We can put conditions on the certificate of completion if there's post-closure issues. For example, maintaining a protective cap, or if there's some long-term monitoring that needs to be done. For the voluntary remediation program, the responsible party can enter into the VRP, unlike the loan program, but they cannot be under any sort of enforcement action by the state. Oh, okay, that's it. There are only 3 of us on staff for Brownfield's program. Allie Firmal's our program manager. Rebecca, that's me, and Jennifer's out sick today. Thanks, and again, I apologize.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. And we had one question. What is the timeline for the loan process for asbestos removal?
When we get an application in, there are, of course, a boatload of documents. And because we are not financial evaluation experts, we subcontract with a nonprofit to evaluate the loan application documents. Once we get all that turned around, it's probably I'll say 2 to 3 months. It's not fast.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you so much. And next up we have Abe. Let's get you set up here. Abe Franklin.
Great, thank you. Glad to be part of this webinar. I work in the Surface Water Quality Bureau of the Environment Department, and mainly I work in the Clean Water Act programs. We receive federal funds from the EPA to support our programs, and we receive some funding from the legislature, and that's what I'm going to be presenting to you guys. See if I can get this to advance. Good. So first, I want to tell you about the nonpoint source management program. So what nonpoint source means is pollution in our streams and rivers that doesn't come from a pipe, but it comes from the landscape, and it tends to come from activities that are not regulated by law, at least not by the Clean Water Act. Some states will have some state laws that control nonpoint source pollution, and we do have a couple of examples of that. For example, the New Mexico Mining Act, our work on that is part of the nonpoint source program. So we receive federal funds from EPA for 2 kinds of projects: watershed-based planning and implementation. Our planning projects develop watershed-based plans, there's a handy acronym there, WBP, that have 9 technical elements. And when you, or if you obtain this PowerPoint from the Economic Development Department, that's actually a link there, so you can see what those 9 technical elements are. Then we also fund implementation, and those implementation projects are to implement the watershed-based plans. So they're kind of 2 sides of the same coin there. And those projects, and for both categories there, we develop through requests for proposals or requests for grant applications. We're transitioning from a request for proposals model to a request for grant applications model. Currently, we actually have a request for grant applications out for the planning projects. So if you're interested, please contact me, and I'll send you the information so you can get started on that or research it further if you're interested. And then the amount of funding I've included here, about $900,000 per year for both types of projects. And that comes from the Federal Clean Water Act, Section 319. So just a little bit more information on that. We have a web page with a link there with more information on watershed-based planning. And I've also got a map of New Mexico to show you that these are the areas in New Mexico where we have watershed-based plans completed already. And so what I'm suggesting that you do, if this sounds interesting to you, is to download that watershed-based plan. If one of your communities is in an area covered by a watershed-based plan, you'll find it there under EPA accepted watershed-based plans on that web page. You'll find each of those watershed-based plans, and then you look to see if a project that you're interested in or a project that's listed in that plan, see if there's a correspondence there. If so, then that project is eligible for the implementation funds. And I guess I should also say that we're hoping to release another request for grant applications for those implementation funds in late January. This table is to introduce you to our project list. And I've got a link there. The link will actually work in the PowerPoint from the Economic Development Department when they provide it to you guys. Our project list, what I'm trying to do is give you an idea of what kinds of things we funded in the past and what our current projects are. So these are recently completed projects and the projects that are in progress right now. Each of them has you can get a lot more information from this project list by clicking on the View link on the right side there. There's a project description, and then probably the richest information there is that there is a project work plan attached for each of the projects. And if it's a completed project, there's also a final report attached. And I just wanted to make sure that I include a photo of an example project. So this was an on-the-ground project on Blue Water Creek near Blue Water Reservoir, and what this project involved was fencing out of livestock and control of off-road vehicle use on the lower part of Blue Water Creek before it enters Blue Water Reservoir. And what we see here is a sudden change in the stream due to that protection, where it's become a much better place for wildlife and is closer to meeting its state water quality standards. Blue Water Creek was listed for nutrients and is no longer considered to be impaired by nutrients, partly because of this project. And it still has a temperature impairment, but someone on my staff that monitors these projects has confirmed that there's a statistically significant cooling that happened as a result of this project. Once again, I mentioned here that it's nominated as a success story. There's a link there on the actual PowerPoint to be able to read this success story and a few other examples. Then we have another program. It's similar. This one is state funded. We call it the River Stewardship Program. And this is actually outlined, or has been outlined in legislation occasionally. So the program is to design and construct projects that improve surface water quality or river habitat statewide, and to provide state matching funds required by the terms of any federal grant under the Clean Water Act. This opportunity, there is an emphasis on planning, or it's really good to have a strong basis in planning in your proposal, but a watershed-based plan is not required. Projects are developed and selected through requests for proposals, or RFPs. And the Environment Department has been requesting $1.5 million per year in capital outlay funds from the New Mexico legislature to support this program. Give you a little bit of a funding history. That's roughly what we have received each year, with the exception of, okay, so we received that for about 3 years in a row, and then not in FY 2017. I mean, rather for FY 18, which is the current fiscal year. And things are looking better for FY 19. So we're hopeful that it will be funded in FY 19. This is a list of projects funded specifically under that program. And like the earlier slide, it's pretty similar. You can get this information from our project list. It's the same list. I'll leave it up just for a moment so you can see some examples. Here is one particular example, included partly because of the relevance to some local governments. I think there are several people participating in this webinar from local governments. We have a project called the Animas River Restoration Project. It's in Berg Park in Farmington. The focus of this project is kind of to improve the river area for recreation. It's kind of a semi-developed, semi-wild park area, but to also improve the aquatic habitat and the fishing conditions. Believe it or not, you might think of Farmington as being a lower altitude, hotter sort of place, but the Animas River does support trout, and game and fish stocks it, so it's mainly a wintertime fishery. But the fish don't have very good holding habitat. So what this project is doing is largely it's building pools, is narrowing up the stream and building pools and adding some complexity, doing some planting of more willows near the bank, and some eradication of the Russian olive primarily. And that concludes my presentation. It's just an introduction. If it sounds interesting to you, please do get in touch with me or Karin Menetry, who's the coordinator for our River Stewardship program. And let's see, I also wanted to mention, when we release a new RFP or request for grant applications, we send it out to our email list, which currently has, I think, something like 1,400 people on it. If that sounds interesting to you, I encourage you to add yourself to our email list. You can do it by going to any Surface Water Quality Bureau page and clicking that button on the bottom. And you end up getting an average of something like 1 email per month. And I've never heard any reports of, spam related to this. So at any rate, I encourage you to do that if it sounds interesting. And thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Abe. That was really fascinating. All right, now we have Gail Craven and Judy Kale.
Okay. Hello, my name is Gail Craven. I'm the loan manager, and I'm here with Judy Kale. She is the Bureau Chief of Construction Program Bureau. This presentation pertains to water and wastewater infrastructure funding and technical services. Construction Programs Bureau provides planning and funding for sustainable water, wastewater, and solid waste systems. Funding is offered through grant and loan services from our Capital Outlay Special Appropriations Program, Clean Water State Revolving Fund, or Rural Infrastructure State Revolving Loan Program. We also provide technical and administrative services as well. Special Appropriation Program. Funding is provided by Capital Outlay Program. Request forms are available at nmlegis.gov. These projects are authorized by the New Mexico legislature during a legislative session and then assigned into law by the governor. The funding comes from the sale of severance tax bonds. Eligible entities include municipalities, counties, special districts, Indian tribes and pueblos, and Municipal Domestic Water Consumers Association. Entities must apply through their legislative representative. New Mexico Capital Outlay Projects, the special legislative appropriates funding each year. In 2017, $3.9 million was appropriated, a significant change from previous years. This is an as-need basis based on what the legislature believes we should be offered. Successfully, in 2017, we had 92 projects that closed. Each grant is based on a 4-year cycle so that we rotate these grants when they close. Clean Water State Revolving Loan Fund Program. Low-cost financing is offered for a wide range of wastewater and stormwater projects that protect surface and groundwater. Interest rates range from 0 to 2.375%, and loan terms are max up to 30 years. We provide subsidy awards to qualifying applicants when available, and eligible entities include municipalities, counties, water and sanitation districts, Mutual Domestic Water Association, pueblos, and tribes. Rural Infrastructure Revolving Loan Program. It is a state-funded program which allows for a quick funding window. Because the funds are state monies, the application and approval process is streamlined, allowing the funds to be available quickly. Funding is available for planning, design, and construction or modification of water supply, solid waste, and wastewater facilities. These are low-cost loans for mutual domestic water consumer associations, water and sanitation districts, and municipalities that serve populations of less than 20,000 and counties with populations less than 200,000. The program has a maximum loan amount, The program has a maximum loan amount of $2 million per year with an interest rate set at 2.375%. Repayment terms is for a period of up to 20 years.
So this is Judy Kale, the Bureau Chief for Construction Programs Bureau. For the Clean Water Revolving Loan Fund, it's an annual application cycle, and we send out the notification that the application is available usually in March, and I have about a 30-day window open for when you can do an application. It's also posted on our website, and I don't know how many people are on our mailing list. It's a lot. Every municipality, mutual domestics, the COGs, the county, everybody are on that mailing list. If you are interested in a clean water loan and you've never received that, you can email any one of us in the Construction Programs Bureau and let us know you'd like to be added to that list. And then on the Rural Infrastructure Program, there is no specific application cycle. You can apply any time, but I should let you know that we basically don't have any money. The legislature over the last several years has taken most of that loan fund, so we are down to bare bones in that loan fund. And as we are getting repayments in, and building that loan fund back up, we'll be able to make some loans, but right now we don't have much money available. So the next part of the presentation is I'm talking about our technical section. I think we may be unique amongst funding entities in that we have a staff of professional engineers who provide oversight for all of the funding programs that we oversee. In addition to, we also work under contract to the Finance Authority on their funding programs. So our engineers are assigned by location. So we have a map that I'll show you at the end that by county, and the engineers oversee all the projects in several counties in their area. We review applications for almost every type of water and wastewater funding in the state, with the exception of USDA funding. We review applications for our programs as well as the Finance Authority, Colonius, Planning Grants, Water Trust Board, Drinking Water SRF, and we are also working on an MOU with the Indian Affairs Department. We right now review applications for the Tribal Infrastructure Fund, and we may be providing some technical oversight as well. The engineers also review preliminary engineering reports, environmental documents, plans and specifications, and other technical reports for compliance with whatever the requirements of a particular funding source are. In addition, we conduct site visits on construction projects and provide technical expertise on a variety of issues. Our engineers review plans and specifications for bidability and constructability. What that means is we are looking at contract documents, plans and specifications to ensure that they can be bid, they can be constructed, and that the contract documents have all these things required for whatever the particular funding is. If it's federal funding, there are it includes requirements for wage rates, American Iron and Steel, those types of requirements. We do not do regulatory compliance reviews. If you are working on a drinking water project, Drinking Water Bureau will do the regulatory reviews for that. If it's a groundwater permit or a surface water permit, the Groundwater Quality Bureau or the Surface Water Quality Bureau may review plans and specifications for regulatory issues. That is not our area of expertise. This is the map that shows the assignments by county for our technical staff. We actually printed this. David Bishop, who is shown as in the green area, has also just as of this week been promoted to the technical section manager, my old position. And so we will be probably re-looking at the map based on number of projects assigned to particular project managers. And depending on what happens with the legislature this year, if we get a lot of projects and you know where they're located, we'll probably be reallocating and looking at the assignments by county. We try to keep the assignments as even as possible amongst the technical staff. So some people have like a whole lot of counties, but there aren't a lot of projects in those particular counties. As you can see, George Scott, who is like the orange, it looks like he's traveling across the entire state, which he is. But the number of projects should be fairly equal. So the project managers are shown on there. If you have a project in a particular county, or if you need funding in a particular county and you want to just talk to a technical person first, you're welcome to call or email any of those folks. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And then on our last slide, we have the contact information for myself, and Rhonda Holderman is our financial manager. She's actually on vacation this week. And then Gail Craven, who we don't have on here, but we should, is our loan manager. But you can email. We have the email addresses for the loan information and for capital outlay information are on here. They're general email addresses that will go to everybody in that particular area. So there should always be somebody who can answer your email questions or send you information in a relatively short amount of time, like within a day or two.
I just want to add that our website has a great deal of information that anyone can feel free to open and access the different programs that's available. Thank you.
Thank you guys very much. And if, just want to remind everyone that if you have questions, just type them in the questions box. And next up, we have Karin Torres that's going to be talking about the Drinking Revolving Loan Fund. And as I'm looking, Karin, I think that, let's see, here's your slides.
Okay, awesome.
All right, you've got control.
Thank you so much, Joanne, and thank you so much for having this forum for us to kind of talk about how we fund different things through the state that through our various programs here at the Environment Department. I'm Karin Torres. I'm the Community Services Program Manager, and I work for the Drinking Water Bureau. And I'll see if I can figure out how to forward these slides. Let's see. There we are. So, oops, too far. But I just want to give a small explanation of what my program does. And so I'm the manager of the Community Services Program, and what we do is we provide managerial and financial system assistance to water systems throughout the state. We work with them to try to increase their capacity, meaning that we try to help them get loans and get grants and be competitive and rank high and get the funding. We provide free training to board members. We help with other sorts of planning documents, such as asset management plans. We help with developing budgets. Also looking at rate analysis. We also help water systems resolve customer complaints about them. And we also conduct an annual rate survey so folks can see what other folks are charging nearby for their water. So the fund that we manage with NMFA is called the Drinking Water State Revolving Loan Fund. Separate from the Clean Water. Clean Water is pretty much wastewater projects. Ours are solely for drinking water infrastructure. And this is a fund that's created by the EPA, meant to be low-cost financial assistance to help water systems comply with the Safe Drinking Water Act. And administered both by NMED and the New Mexico Finance Authority. And it's a self-sustaining revolving loan fund. And we don't have grants through it, but we do have what's called principal forgiveness or subsidy, meaning that you don't have to finance the entire amount of the project if we have subsidy available and if your project ranks high enough. For some reason, it's not called a grant. And so since the inception of this fund, we have provided $45 million in subsidy to various water systems throughout the state and $147 million in low-interest loans. And I'll get into a little more of the specifics here. Why would anyone want to go with our program? So as I mentioned before, we do offer low-interest loans. A lot of times they're below market rate loans, depending on the financial situation of the community and the water system. We also can increase the payment period longer than 20 years to help folks, systems make that payment. Again, that's a tool we use for disadvantaged communities. We also accept funding requests year-round. We have a very simple process to submit a project interest form. We 3 times a year we go through and we can go to NMFA and request funding for the project. So it's not just a one-year thing. Though that being said, our subsidy is available in the beginning part of the year, so most folks apply then hoping that they can obtain subsidy. Systems can receive between 25% and 75% subsidy for their project, and again in the form of loan forgiveness. And then what's also interesting about our program is if systems are struggling a bit with some managerial, financial, or technical capacity issues, we offer free assistance. If they're not compliant with drinking water regs, we try to get stuff filed for them and help them out with various reports and forms, and also help entities do other filings for their budgets, for DFA, and any number of things, just to, again, get them compliant and qualify for funding. So we are eligible entities. We are pretty much water systems, but that also can include a village, municipality, county, if they have a water system. We fund what's called a public water system, which is a public or privately owned water system that serves at least 25 people or 15 connections year-round, and these can be owned by publicly or privately. We also can fund nonprofit, non-community water systems that are systems that don't necessarily treat the 25 people or 15 connections year-round, but are considered a nonprofit, non-community system. Example of that may be something like a hospital or something of that nature. Ineligible recipients in our program are federal facilities. They aren't allowed to apply for that, and also for-profit, non-community water systems are not eligible for this program. And if anyone has questions on this, give me a call, and I'm happy to explain that further about the definition of a community water system. And then also there are just certain projects that we fund. As I said earlier, primarily drinking water systems and projects that support a drinking water system. So some examples of that are new and replacement water sources, treatment of your water, transmission and distribution lines, storage, SCADA systems. If you actually are interested in regionalizing with a nearby system, we can help with that infrastructure to interconnect. We also fund green projects for energy efficiency and water conservation. And what's unique about our program is we also do fund planning documents such as design and other documents necessary for pre-construction. And so that's a little bit unique. We don't those types of projects are not eligible for subsidy, but we do finance them, and we finance them currently for 20 years. So what is, oops, sorry, I keep passing it up. So a few things are not eligible for this funding entity. We don't fund dams. We don't fund the acquisition of water rights unless it's like part of a system purchase. We don't fund reservoirs except for if they're just for finished water and treatment. The projects that are primarily for fire protection, that's an ineligible project. Projects that primarily address growth, basically we're trying to target systems that are in need of upgrading what they currently have. And then also we do not fund land acquisitions except if they're needed for that project, such as a well site or something like that. So I have a little diagram, just sort of what our process is, what you go through. First, you submit a project interest form, which is really, really simple form. You go online, you just give us a little bit of information. Then we will evaluate the system and your project based upon our current ranking. We'll ask you for some documents. We'll work with you on what you need to get. We publish what's called a priority list. This is done 3 times a year that shows what projects can be funded and which projects are not quite ready, but we're working with them and hoping that they can move forward and get funded. Then you submit an application to the New Mexico Finance Authority, and they're a board. They have an approval process through their board. We prepare what's called, or the entity prepares a readiness to proceed documents for stuff that's needed prior to construction. Their loan closes, and then they construct the project. So that's just kind of the different steps, just in a nutshell. So when I talked about system evaluation, when we look at the projects that have come in, we also evaluate how the system is operating. We look at their technical capacity, we look at their managerial capacity, and also their financial capacity. We want to make sure that these systems are functioning okay. And I know we're getting short on time, so I'll go quick. We have one more presenter. So we also evaluate the project. We have some ranking criteria that we use, and we go through and we see how many points that project gets. We try to look at public health threats and compliance first. We also take into account affordability of the community on a per household basis. We look at the system population. We look at whether the system is participating, or actually the project is participating in regionalization. And also we have different points for water conservation and energy efficiency projects. So then once we do this evaluation and determine that they have sufficient technical, managerial, and financial capacity, we also get a determination whether the project can be ready to proceed within 6 months. This is basically so we can get projects that are ready to go, that don't need environmental clearances, they don't need other stuff in order to construct. They just basically need construction money, or sometimes there is a design and construct, but if they're ready to go within 6 months, we'd like to fund those projects. And then also we need to see whether the system has the ability to repay a loan. So NMFA does a little more rigorous financial analysis for debt capacity to see whether or not they can take on the loan. In general, we have partial loan forgiveness. As everyone knows, there's not 100% funding usually any longer. And so the way that we structure our loans and our subsidies allocated based on the ranking of your project. So if your project is ranked number 1, you will be first in line to get any subsidy that may be available, and then we go down the list thereafter. Let's see, and so then we also have a second list. We have the list of projects that we call fundable, meaning that they have the sufficient capacity and they can take on the debt and they have ready to proceed. Other projects may not be ready to build at this time. They may need some assistance with looking at their rates in order for them to take on debt, or they may not have sufficient capacity. So we put them on a comprehensive list for future consideration. And they have 3 years in order to resolve some of the issues that were preventing them from getting funded, and then they can move over to that comprehensive list within those 3 years. And so I just wanted to give you a little update on what our current deadlines are. So for our next fiscal year, 19, we are accepting project interest forms. We're accepting them currently, but our deadline to submit it is February 1st, 2018. We're going to be sending out emails and marketing this, but that's our kind of drop dead deadline to get your project in, and you can put it in now if you have something of interest. We also there's a series of deadlines actually. So then February 1st, we'd like to see the project interest form. We'd like to get your documents on the project within 30 days. And then we will evaluate our projects. We should have our list posted for public review and comment by the end of May. And our final priority list will be published on July 2nd. We didn't choose July 1st because it was a Sunday and we did not want to come in on a Sunday. And then at the bottom, there's also our web page that you can look on there and see additional information on our program, and there's contact information too. And feel free to contact me anytime with any question that you might have. And thank you for allowing this venue.
Thanks, Karin. All right. Now, Joan Snyder with the Solid Waste Bureau was unable to join us, so I volunteered to present some of her information because they have 2 really fantastic programs just to throw out there and make sure you're aware of. The first one is the Solid Waste Facility Grant, and this fund is for projects for facility or operational improvements at solid waste facilities. It is through the fiscal year, and it varies each year. Open to municipalities, counties, cooperative associations, and solid waste authorities. And then the examples of the projects, you can get an idea if it's a good fit in your area, but some of the examples of the uses include installation of additional or down gradient groundwater monitoring wells at landfills, collection center, transfer station improvements, weather stations, site surveys, purchase of equipment, preparation of final closure, documentation, and engineering certifications by an engineer, installation of stall fencing and other litter control mechanisms to prevent litter from leaving sites, purchase of wood chips, mixed stone, gravel, compost, and other material to complete test strips to determine best method and rate of application to protect intermediate and final cover at landfills, preparation of design plans, and then there's a various other uses for the fund. And to contact the person in charge of this fund, that's going to be at the bottom of the screen there, Arlie Ashley Marks, and she would be more than happy to discuss the program with you. And then the last program that we have in our presentation today is the RAID grant, the Recycling and Illegal Dumping program. And that is basically to prevent and abate illegal dump sites and promote reuse and recycling. So we've actually seen this fund utilized at FUNDIT in some really interesting ways. Some of the eligible projects that you can include, and from my experience, you can get kind of creative with this fund, but establishing recycling facilities, offsetting the cost of scrap tire collection and recycling, and that is a big focus of the program. I think 2/3 of the fund is designed for scrap tire management. Purchase equipment for recycling and scrap tire management, performing marketing regarding recycling programs or efforts, purchasing products produced by a recycling facility. And this is where we've seen communities get creative in a community development way of purchasing recycled material to line a trail or line a playground area. That was really interesting. Provide educational outreach regarding scrap tire management, recycling and illegal dumping, developing recycling infrastructure, and contracting with vendors to promote recycling. So there's a huge variety of ways that you can utilize this fund, and it fits really nicely into revitalization efforts, community development, community cleanup efforts. And the person you would contact is Joan Snyder, whose contact is at the bottom of the screen. So that concludes our presentation, and we do have time for questions. If anyone has any questions, you're more than welcome to type them in to the screen, to the little question box. And if not, as mentioned, you will get this presentation emailed to you, and all of the presenters' contact was listed at the end of their presentation, so you can contact them. And I'm not seeing any questions, so that means that our presenters did a really great job, and I want to take the time to thank them. Once again, it's really great to hear more in depth about their programs, and their efforts are completely in alignment with what we do at economic development, because you have to have the infrastructure and the cleanup initiatives and efforts in order to even begin to talk about how do we improve the economy of the area. So it's nice to work together with the Environment Department, and it's great that they have these funding opportunities. So, not seeing any questions. Just wanted to point out that there are some really great events coming up. In regard to FUNDIT, we do have our meeting, our bi-monthly meeting is coming up, and that will be December 12th in Albuquerque. And if you do have a project that you want to present at FUNDIT, the cutoff for the application is December 1st. So that's coming up in very quickly. And December 6th is a really great opportunity. The Grants Collective is a fantastic organization based in Albuquerque that we've worked really closely with. And their whole charge and mission is to improve communities' ability to get more outside grants and get them to come into New Mexico. So they're working directly with communities to help them become competitive when they are going after either it's foundation dollars, federal dollars, even state. So they are having a free webinar on the 6th to give a demo of their organization and the benefits of their services. So I'd really encourage everyone to sign up for that. And then our next webinar in the educational series will be in February. And actually, it'll be in January. It'll probably be at the end of January. But we're going to be talking about transportation issues as it pertains to economic development. So we'll involve the programs that have transportation funding opportunities and talk about as a community, how can you improve your transportation planning so it is advantageous to economic development. And then last and finally, we have our Rural Efficient Business Program workshop that will be in February, and that will be in Las Vegas. This is a part of a series of workshops that we're having around the state where we are partnering with the engineers at MNERD, Energy, Minerals, Natural Resources, and addressing ways that businesses can reduce their energy consumption. And that's a fantastic opportunity to get some tips and even get a customized energy audit. So if you are in that area, come on by. You can contact me, or there's actually a website you can register, ruralefficientbiz.com, nmruralefficientbiz.com, and you can register for the workshops. And we'll have them all over the state. We just had one in Taos, and next one's in Las Vegas, and we'll have one in each region. And I do see 2 questions that have come in, so I'm going to go ahead and ask those. Let's see. Do completed participants become coaches for new applicants? Does any presenter understand that? Do completed participants become coaches? I'm not sure I really understand that question. So we'll take that one offline. But that was it. Unless any of the presenters, do you have any, does that make sense?
This is Abe, and I can guess what might be meant by that question.
Okay.
So, like on our project list, this was part of my presentation. Let's see, I think we have not included so the database that came from has an Environment Department project manager and a project manager for either our contractor or the cooperating agency. While it's not on the table that I showed, if you click on the link that's on that project list to get the more detail that I talked about, you can get the name and phone number of a person in the community that's actually, that the Environment Department is working with, a successful applicant, to learn more about how they did it and learn more about their project. So in that sense, yes, that information is available for some of these programs. And I would think that on a as requested basis, it's probably available from us presenters on all of the different programs.
Thanks,
Does that
Abe.
make sense?
Yes, thank you. All right. Well, if we don't have any other questions, I want to thank you again for participating, and a big thanks to the representatives from the Department of Environment. As you can see, they've got some fantastic opportunities out there to help fund your projects. So I'd encourage you to get in contact with them, go to their websites and get familiar with their programs. So thank you again, and we'll send out the presentation and get in contact with us if we can be of any service to you. So thanks very much and have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Jen. Bye.
Bye.